Okay,
Hello.
should we start?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the Vibrant Life podcast.
You did it.
I did it. This week, we're talking about confidence and how that really comes from radical self-love, or how it starts with radical self-love. So I feel like this is going to be a very powerful episode.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good about it.
Let's bring it.
Audrey is going to pull cards to start us off, since that's where we're starting now.
Today, we're going to use the Ask Your Guides Oracle deck by Sonia Choquette. Oh, we have used this one before because I didn't know how to say her name.
We should find her and listen to her saying her name.
Woo! I almost had a lot of cards fly out.
Whoa! She actually has a book and a journal that goes along with these that I've done.
Oh.
And so I was like, well, I'll just buy the whole set, because my little ADHD brain is like, you need all the things. If you're gonna do anything, you gotta do it. You gotta do it all.
You can't leave any of the pieces unfound. So guess what? Self-love. So we're talking about radical self-love today. And then the other one is deprivation, which Cassie has pulled out multiple times recently. And then the last time we were together, we pulled it out together.
Yeah.
So let's start with self-love.
Yeah, that's just gonna write a line, isn't it?
Self-love, self-reflection, personal awareness, self-interest, and self-esteem. You're being called to align with your true nature and consciously create a life that reflects, soothes, and supports your unique soul. This is the foundation of self-love. Do not settle into a rut or routine that numbs your soul. To love yourself is to choose what brings you joy, stimulates your creativity, and stretches your imagination. Reflect on what makes you feel body and soul more at ease, alive, nourished, present, and relaxed, and build a life on these conditions. Do not feel guilty or allow anyone to talk you out of caring for your soul. Recognize what creates stress and anxiety and decreases your ability to feel good in life, and avoid these conditions as much as possible. Are you a gentle, introverted soul? For example, who thrives in peace and tranquility? If so, choose to spend more quiet time alone to rest, rejuvenate, and tap into your creative flow. Avoid noisy places and people who show little sensitivity, overstimulate you, and disturb your peace. Are you an energetic, extroverted soul who comes alive with excitement and adventure? Then break free from the monotony of routine that comes with predictable day jobs and enroll in a tango class. Take a trapeze course or join an improv group on the weekends, and let your fiery nature exercise its love of expression. Are you an intellectually curious soul who loves to dive deep into conversations, philosophy, and go back to school to join a book club to explore subjects and works that interest you along kindred spirits, and avoid people and conditions that lull you to sleep with boredom? Are you an earthy soul who loves to garden, work with your hands, build, design, cook, and create? Then go outdoors, explore markets, visit garden or design centers, or better yet, create your own workshop or studio space that allows you to make things you love. Your loving nature spirits encourage you to build your life around your true nature. This is the foundation of self-love. And the podcast is over. We got all the advice we needed in that one space.
There we go. Go for it. Do it.
That is the end. Self-love. That is the thing for today. And deprivation. Can you remember what this one is about?
Just read the little gray box part.
Oh, yeah. Deprivation, withholding, paranoia, stinginess, and frugality. Tap into the abundance of the universe by sharing your heart. The universal laws of prosperity state that we receive what we give. And the universe does not lack.
So what I'm getting with that, or where that takes my mind, is when we do not show up confidently as our full selves, when we do not give ourselves the love that we deserve, we're also depriving the world of our highest self and who we show up as. So not only are we depriving us of the love that we deserve, but we are depriving the world of our awesomeness.
Yeah. Our true
when you hide it, when you are shy, or which I would classify myself as shy, but that is me holding myself back.
Yeah.
When I don't go into a room and I say, this is who I am. And I do feel like as I've been on this like self-love journey, I do allow myself to take up more space.
Yeah.
And I am more confident.
Yeah, I love that. It is a journey for sure.
Yeah.
Because we're taught to not take up space.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right. And so it's the deconstructing of what is going on in that brain of yours. And so today we're going to talk about the deconstruction of loving yourself. And do you love yourself fully? And if you're not loving yourself fully, you don't have the capacity to love everyone around you fully.
Yeah.
And the word that's coming to mind is, oh, hold on, where is it? When you love somebody, like, despite all their faults, like,
Unconditional?
unconditional. Hello,
Unconditional love?
Friday. Hello, unconditional love. Like, you have to unconditionally love yourself before you can unconditionally love others. And that was a giant lesson that I learned last year with my
Mm,
marriage falling apart. I kept hearing that over and over and over again, love him unconditionally. And I was like, how do you do that? Well, through that process, I did have to tap into the fact that I wasn't unconditionally loving myself. I thought I had gone through all these pieces of deconstructing what I thought I was lacking, but I realized I still was holding myself to expectations that were unnecessary
yeah.
and didn't make any sense. And so once you start to let that go, then like it took me a good whole year to kind of come to a place where I was like, oh, I kind of fully embody what unconditional love really looks like now.
Yeah.
Instead of picking apart other people, I was picking apart other people because I was still picking apart myself.
I was gonna say, when you embody self-love, you have a much greater capacity for grace, both for yourself and for others.
Mhm.
And I also wanted to point out, loving yourself unconditionally doesn't mean glossing over the flaws.
No.
It's like being self-aware, right? Like true self-awareness, you can't just be aware of what you need to work on. You need to be aware of what you're great at too.
Yeah.
And same with unconditional self-love, we need to acknowledge the good, but also acknowledge the things that are flaws or that we need to work on, knowing that we won't ever be perfect, and that's okay.
And there's no such thing as
Right.
perfect, right? And the yin and the yang again, the dark and the light. And
Yeah.
so there are darker parts of ourselves, and it's okay to embrace those and not to try to hide it away because it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
Because good does not exist without bad, and so we are both part. And it's in reality, it's not good or bad. It just is.
Yeah. So I think for me, when I think about confidence and how I started to embody that, it was moving it from this place of achievement based. Because growing up, I'm not super great at any sports. Like, so those like games where it was like, tell us three things about yourself. I always froze at those because I don't know, I'm nice. Like, but like
Yeah, you
the things
are.
that like I would tell people are not things that I had accomplished. Like it
Yeah.
was like not things that I had earned. And so I didn't have like a lot of confidence. So I was like, well, I don't know, like I'm not great at any sport. I hadn't found my niche. I hadn't found my
Mhm.
thing. Right. And a lot of times that's how we classify people. And the most confident people are like, oh, well, I'm really good at this XYZ thing. And then you hear those stories of like when that thing falters or an athlete gets hurt or whatever, they go down the spiral because their entire identity is wrapped up in the accomplishments where you have to move it from external validation to internal validation. So it comes from the inside out. So radical self love is just this foundation of I give myself permission to exist. I am worthy just as I am. I'm allowed to take up space and I'm good at things and I can celebrate that.
Yeah. And that's a really hard place to get from outside validation because that's
Yes.
our entire society growing up is, oh, is this okay? Like I would every time I had a problem, I needed to talk to 10 people about it so I could
Ooh,
make sure
yeah.
that I was right in the situation instead of could I have done this better? And now I never have to talk to anybody about my problems because all I need to do is go into meditation and sit with the situation. And I'm much quicker to apologize when I'm wrong because I'm like, oh, yeah, yep, that was my bad. And I think because I don't need that outside validation anymore, I am the validation.
Well, I think there's a difference between talking to your community or your friends and saying, what should I do? I don't know. I need to get a consensus over every decision versus bringing a situation to your community and being like, am I missing an angle here? This is what I'm
Yes.
thinking I'm going to do.
Yeah.
This is what I feel called to do. Like, can you see anything that I'm missing? Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is advice
Yeah.
seeking and wise counsel seeking versus I'm running my life by committee,
Yeah.
which we've all fallen into. I mean, if you've been a teenage girl,
Yeah.
You've gone through that, right?
I think this is definitely something that typically is worse for women than it is for men.
Yes. Yes. Or maybe it just manifests differently.
Yeah.
I feel like if you look at teenage girls and boys, they are probably both equally as insecure
Yeah.
and lacking the self-love and confidence, like innate confidence. I feel like boys overcompensate with bravado.
Sure.
And then girls, we whisper, right?
Yeah.
We clump and we whisper and we are catty and we do those things.
Yeah.
And then we get older and we're like, oh, I don't live in a clique society anymore. Turns out no one gives a shit what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So then you got to turn into yourself and be like, okay, how do I have confidence? How do I radically love me?
Yeah.
Yes. So what we're saying here is that self-love isn't the reward. It's the starting point.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? So our goal in this episode is to help you understand how to shift your confidence and walk away with daily practices to strengthen your self-acceptance. So that's our goal for this episode. So that's kind of where we're going. There'll be tangents along the way.
Lots of tangents.
As there are. But when I think about my journey for self-confidence, and I wouldn't say I walk into a room like I own it every time, right? I still have moments of self-doubt or just the self-awareness to be like, I should not be running this room, right? But it comes from a place of self-love. And I think some of that comes with just life in general. I think the greatest teacher for me has been grief. Knowing that I can walk through a season of grief, a deep valley of grief where I had 3 years where life was just a shit show and there was grief in all its different forms. There was grief of a loved one, grief of another loved one, grief of my marriage, grief of what I thought my future was going to be, grief of friends, just all the different types of griefs that you can have. So that is kind of where this self-trust is rooted for me. But I think that was the catalyst to get me to start loving myself. So I'm not saying go out and get into a season of grief. That is not the prerequisite.
Get rid of all the people in your life to experience grief, and then you can self-love.
Drop a bomb. But I will say I'm very curious to see from a broader perspective, as our country is kind of going through a period of grief, what kind of self-love, confidence we come out with. Because if we can weather this, that will be a confidence boost.
Yeah. And I feel very strongly that we will weather this.
Yeah.
And we are going to come out stronger on the other side. It's hard not to get caught up in the day-to-day things that are happening. So that's where you got to stop and take that break and look within and focus on your own light, because you can't get caught up in that drama.
Right.
Because then you'll be miserable every day of your life. So stopping and looking within and figuring out what's going on that way is
right. It goes back to the external validation versus the internal. If you're waiting for our country to be okay, for you to be okay,
you're never going to be okay.
It's not going to be.
Not for a long time.
That's not going to be a good track for you.
Yeah. No.
Yes. So when I think about confidence and how I used to show up in the world, words I would use to describe past Cassie were passive, unsure, looking for permission in a lot of areas. And then I was letting other people define how I was allowed to show up in the world. I was trying to fit into boxes. And so with that came a lot of self-doubt. Came a lot of this, if you're not watching the video, you can't see, but like closing in on myself. I have a very vivid memory of when we first started dating, my ex-husband being like, I don't like loud women. And that was such a poor memory because it was like we were out at a party and I was like laughing with my friends. And there was, your friend that gets loud and crazy. And he's like, oh. And that was like, oh.
I better not be.
I better shrink, Yeah. We can't have too much fun here. So, and that was like probably a throwaway comment from him. He probably doesn't even remember. But I was allowing other people to dictate who I could be and how I could show up in the world.
Yeah.
And so when all of that fell away, or I threw it away, depending on what you're talking about, it came from a place of exploration, and it came from a place of self-love and prioritizing myself, which is what we talk about at Vibrant Life all the time.
Mhm.
All this time.
All the time. It's the most important thing,
Yes.
is to prioritize yourself. I don't have a lot to say this morning.
You don't. I
Mm-mm.
feel like I'm just ripping and rolling, man.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, that's great. I'm like, what do I have to add to that? Nothing. Nothing.
Yes.
Nothing.
So let's talk about the things that are most likely barriers to our full self-love actualization. So a lot of times it's when we've bought into these external validation factors. So we have been told as women that we need to be a high achiever in certain areas, or we must look a certain way. So for a long time, I was like, well, I'll be happy when I weigh XYZ, or I'll be happy when I look a certain way, or I'll be happy when happy with myself, not only happy externally, but like happy with myself. I'll feel like a real girl, right? When I have X amount of money in the bank, or I have, this kind of job. And so when we move internally, it doesn't come easier, but you love yourself in spite of those things, not because of those things.
You're more accepting of your whole self and who you are and everything that's there.
Yeah.
It's a process to get there, though, because there's a daily narrative that maybe you don't talk the kindest to yourself. I can just remember all the time I would get ready and there would always be I don't like the way this looks, or I don't like the way this feels, or constantly there was like a negative Nancy type of narrative that was happening in my head from the as as early as I can remember, feeling like I was never good enough to fit into social situations, or like feeling like anything that I did. And it was all facets of life. So it was just like when I was at school, when I was at work, when I was with my family, just this narrative of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not deserving of this thing. And so having to really address all of those narratives and replacing them with positive affirmations was the beginning of turning all of that around.
Yes. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Using affirmations. So self-love is a skill. It's not a feeling.
Yeah.
So it's a skill that can be honed.
Yeah.
And one of your tools in your tool belt is affirmations. And one that I've been really loving lately, it's been the one that I've been using for my 369, is I can't wait to see what I do because I always show up for myself. And I feel like that has been a really good one to give me that confidence boost and kind of fake it till I make it in areas. Right now, this is something that I'm personally working on again. Like, I feel like I faltered a little bit. I've been looking to the external, like, oh, I want, this number of followers, or I want to be this far in this goal, or I want to be making this type of money, and I'm not. And so it's been kind of coming back to the basics, using affirmations. I can't wait to see what happens because I always show up for myself. I can't wait to see what I do because I always show up for myself. And so that has been kind of that like flip the script kind of thing, like the fake it till you make it when you're going into a situation or when you catch yourself in those negative thought loops, just flipping it on its head and honing that skill, that practice.
Yep. And here we are again where we're teaching something and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing this for work right now. Work is not going well. I feel like people are not getting along. Management's like, we need to do more. And then we're like, we're trying to do more. It's just not working. And can't you see how hard we're already working? And how dare you demand more of us? And so I'm constantly on the daily struggling, looking at my caseload and trying to figure out how I can put out more. And
yeah,
I've been stuck in this narrative. So anyways, you're talking about that. And I'm like, oh, I need to work on that.
I love when we call ourselves
that daily dialogue of let it go. You're doing the best. You're doing the best you can.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Frozen, I feel like that's a very good self-love, self-confidence. That whole story arc. That's what that is.
It's about
Elsa. We are freaking Elsa up in here.
The second one is about her spiritual awakening when she realizes
Yeah.
that she is the fifth element. She is spirit. And so that's it. You are the fifth element. And her going through that, the darkness was her dark night of the soul, and her going into the
Mhm.
cave and figuring out all of the answers she ever needed were just within herself. Yeah, that's
Mm.
it was her coming into her own, her finding that self-love for herself, that confidence that yes, she was different, but she just needed to own because she was taught to hide
Yeah,
her
the
gifts.
conceal, don't feel, don't let it show. How is
Yes.
that not very apt to a lot of our experiences, right?
Yeah, when I watched her with my kids, I was like, yes. I was like, she's spiritually awakening. Look at her. Like,
But even the first one, it's her
Yeah.
own awakening. It's her
Yeah.
personal awakening of she steps into her power. And that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about here. She goes from concealing her true nature, her power,
Yeah.
to then letting it go and building a freaking castle. How is that not self-love? And she's like, I'm not going to go back into a box. And then it turns out the people around her love her for who she is. Podcast over.
Mic drop.
That is the experience. That is what vibrant life is about. Going from, I don't know who I am. I don't know how to show up in the world. I know there is better and more for me, to fully embodying who you are, or at least having the tools to be on that road, right? To find people that are going to say, hey, I see you. I see what you're doing. I love what you're doing. Like, I love who you are, not what you're doing, but like who you are. We might also love what you're doing, but we're not getting external validation anymore. So when you fully show up as yourself, I mean, even going back to our partnership, like we met at a certain time. And if I had shown up in that community as my previous self, the one who didn't love herself, the one who was super unsure, the one who would never take a risk to go out and do something like this.
Oh,
right?
Years ago, you were my podcast. Hell no.
Absolutely not. Who
I don't
wants
have
to listen to me. I don't have anything
I
to
don't
say.
have anything to say. Who wants to listen to me? That was exactly the same thing as you're saying. I was like, yes, that's exactly where
I don't have anything to teach. I don't have anything. And I struggled with that even at the start of this journey. Like, I have known I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then when I really started digging in, I was always like, I don't know what I have to bring. I don't know what I have to offer, because I was looking at accomplishments and people are like, you got to start with your bio. You got to start with your whatever, share your what's your expertise? I'm like, I'm 25. I don't have anything. Like, I'm not like going back to the freezing at the tell us about yourself, And so I needed to go on this self journey. And now I'm like, yeah, I don't feel I've earned X amount of money and I've done blah, blah, but I'm like, I'm showing up as me, and that's enough. Mm-hmm. That's a huge shift.
It is
and you showing up as you is enough. Yeah. You are worthy of love for yourself just by being part of the world, just by being here. And then the more you love yourself, the more you are able to accept love from other people as well.
Too. I don't know why this example popped up on me. Popped up right now. I don't even know if this correlates, but like if you see a penny on the ground, and my thought would always be, oh, someone else needs that more than I do, so I'm gonna let it be, instead of being like, oh, did you ever give me a gift? Thank you. So I feeling like somebody else is more in need or more deserving, instead of just being like, wow, like, or if somebody,
I'm gonna take up space.
Yes.
I'm going to take up space.
Yes. I'm going to take up space, and I'm worthy of the gifts that are given to me. And then when you accept those gifts, you get more, because the universe is like, oh, you like that? Here, let me give you another.
But also, you're showing up more confidently in the space. So the people around you see you showing up differently, and you become that girl that like walks into a room and people are like, oh, I like her aura. I like her vibe. I like her.
I feel better when I'm around her.
Yeah. And so I feel like the rest just comes kind of naturally. Okay, so we promised you daily practices. So let's get into that. So we touched on affirmations. So you have to speak to yourself like someone you love. Again, this is a skill that you are honing. This is something you can practice. If you are not feeling loving towards yourself, that is not the prerequisite. You just got to do it, and the feelings will come. So going back to your example of kind of the negative stories that you're telling yourself, Would you give that advice to a friend? Is that how you would speak to a friend? You are your own best friend. Speak to yourself in that way.
Absolutely.
Don't allow the world to tell you that you need to be smaller. We kind of went into this last episode too of like moms are supposed to be messy and like all this stuff. And we almost share more of our faults as moms than we do our wins because we're afraid of being judged. And I feel like we do that to ourselves too. We focus more on our faults because we don't give ourselves the permission to take up the space that we deserve, the space that we just are.
Well, you don't want it to sound cocky, right?
Right.
You don't want to be braggy about, oh, look, we did this.
What was it that just said, I feel like it was during Kamala's, some of us aren't out here trying to be humble. Oh, what was it? I was like, I want that. I'm like everywhere. Some of us aren't out here trying to be humble.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. Why is that the thing?
Why is humble a good thing?
Why is that the thing that we rate all women on? Women should be humble. Women should be gracious. No.
We're throwing that shit out right
No.
now. It's gone.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, you got to talk to yourself like you are
Brag
your
on
best friend.
yourself.
Brag on yourself.
Brag on yourself because you deserve
Yes.
it.
So our actions shape our beliefs. So we have to show up as the version of you who already believes she is worthy. You are worthy of the space. So fake it till you make it. That's okay. That is applicable in this instance. Show up as someone who is worthy, as someone who already believes she is worthy, and the beliefs will come after the actions. So what that looks like in practice is your narrative. So one of the things that I've been doing is I flipped the negative belief that I am not a consistent person. And so I show up as someone who is worthy of taking care of herself consistently. So I feed myself daily like someone who is worthy of good food. I go to the gym as someone who is worthy of the self-love of going to the gym. Not every day, but more consistently than I did previously. Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. So the actions, you got to start with the actions and they will follow. If you want to go even more micro, how I really started with that is I challenged myself to a Duolingo streak and to our Finch app streaks. And I was like, okay, I have this belief that I am not someone who is consistent. And so I was like, I'm going to see how high I can get this streak. And right now I have a 600-day streak on Duolingo and I have a 200 and something day streak on Finch.
I love it.
And I'm like, okay, the actions. And now I believe that I am someone who can be consistent. So when something comes up that is, this requires you to do this daily and to show up over and over again, I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
No problem.
I got that.
I can take up that space. I can commit to that. I'm that kind of person. So how you can do this with self-love is picking a daily practice. So dressing with intention. This was one of the first things I did after my divorce. I was like, I'm going to read in my closet. What is my dopamine dressing? What makes me happy? What makes me feel good in my clothes? Like you are worthy to have clothes that make you feel good and to spend money on that. Or to go thrifting. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't, no, but
Like,
what makes you feel good?
What makes you feel good in the morning? Yeah. You will carry yourself differently when you feel good in the clothes that you're in. Standing up tall. I read this interview thing a while ago of if you are practicing, like if you walk in with your like fingers crossed, but if you practice answering it, like answering questions or go into the bathroom like before your interview and like just kind of do like a power pose, those people often got more.
Yeah, it's the superhero pose.
Yes.
Put your hands back.
Okay, I'm glad you knew what I was talking about.
You put your hands back on your hips and you put your chest out and your head up towards the sky. You are embodying like this superhero and you are literally raising your confidence. So standing like that, I don't remember how long they say to do it.
I feel like it was like 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Like it's not long.
But it's just embodying that confidence, that self-worth, that self-love. It's just something you can do with your body. There's somebody on, he does that 28-day joy challenge where you move your body in these different ways and it helps to move your energy through the earth. It helps you connect to the earth and connect to source. And it moves the energy through your body in different ways that raises your vibration, which also makes you feel better.
Interesting.
And a side note.
I love that though. And then practice taking up space. So in a conversation, whatever thought that you're suppressing, share it.
Let it out.
Go to the thing that you've been, oh, that's not for me. Go do the thing. Put yourself in an uncomfortable, not an unsafe, but an uncomfortable position, and then allow yourself to be there and to fully participate. I think for me, it switched from a lot of this isn't for me. I would just assume that kind of like your penny, but like on every scale. Like I was like, oh, that space isn't for me, or that group isn't for me. Just allow yourself to take up space and then participate in them.
I did do a lot of mirror work when I started on this
Yes,
journey.
that's a good one.
So really sitting with the thoughts that are happening in your head and then speaking them out loud to yourself while looking directly in your eyes. It's a very uncomfortable thing. When you first do it, you're like, this feels weird. I feel like I've been taught to not look at myself, to not want to like enjoy the way I feel in my body. And so that was just kind of the beginning.
Does that go back to the humble thing? We're told to be humble and not vain.
Yeah, it really might. It really
Oh, all the connections. See, it's all so connected. It's all so connected. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I would recommend that too. Whatever affirmations you come up with. Like even now, like Cassie's getting better at looking at the camera. I still choose to look at Cassie. It's hard. It's hard to do it. To look in the camera and talk about what's happening, and it's the same as mirror work. So I didn't do it a lot, but I did it enough that I got comfortable looking at myself naked because that was really hard. And then like as I'm going out for the day too, like, yes, I feel good today. Like I'm just gonna own it. I'm gonna just kind of gives you that boost of confidence. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Okay, so that's another thing that you could try if you wanted.
Yes. So writing down your affirmations, practicing them out loud, notice your negative thought patterns, flip those, let yourself take up space. Just allow yourself to be and fake it till you make it. This is a skill. It's not a feeling. So yeah, you can hone the skill and sharpen it and strengthen it like you would any other muscle in the gym. Self-love is your muscle. So
the superpower.
Yes. Okay. So what is coming up for us? Let's see. We've got Q2 planning. That would be on our socials somewhere. It might have been last week, actually, now that I'm thinking about when this podcast comes out. But you can get the replay in the Vibrant Life Society app, which is your plug to go join the app. We have both free, and then we have a VIP section that has all kinds of courses. Speaking of courses and resources, we are going to do Life Redesigned. So that is intentionally going through your life and designing a life that feels good for you. So that is so tied into self-love. We go into this deeper. We go deeper into mindset work. We go deeper into examining your relationships and how to make those feel good. And that all stems from self-love too, right? Knowing you're worthy of healthy, fulfilling relationships. So we go through that in the next module. And then module 3, we go through your time because you deserve to dictate where your time goes. You deserve to spend time on the things that matter to you and your community. And then we go into your home because your home should feel like a sanctuary. And so we talk about managing that and making the vibes right and all those things, like not have your home feel like a burden and just giving yourself permission to have that be whatever that looks like for you. So a little bit about that, like putting self-love into practice. I own a home. I own a very beautiful home, but it turns out because I don't like owning a home. I bought it because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Yeah. Right. And I was told this is like the pinnacle of adulthood. And it was too much for me. And so I gave myself permission to say, I'm going to spend a little bit more money to rent so that I don't have to do these things because my time is more valuable to me than doing all the home maintenance and doing the things. And so just that, like going through and intentionally designing a life that feels really good for you and not having it be prescribed and having it be something that you intentionally designed. So that is Life Redesigned. We're going through it as a live cohort in the VIP section. So come join us. We would love to have you. And it's going to be really impactful. It's going to be really great. I'm so excited about it.
Can't wait to start.
Okay. So we'll see you there. Come join us. Find us on socials. Make sure you're following us. all the places,
Like all
because
buttons.
we're just out here taking up space and we're
Lots of
doing it
space.
scared. Okay, see you guys next time.
Bye.
Exciting news! The Vibrant Life Society is now open, and we'd love for you to join our incredible community of empowered women. Sign up through the link in the show notes to start creating your most vibrant, joy-filled life today. And thank you for tuning in to our Vibrant Life podcast. We hope today's episode has energized and inspired you to live your best life. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you more valuable content. Stay connected with us on social media at Vibrant Life Society for daily tips, motivation, and community support. As we wrap up today's conversation, we encourage you to embrace each moment, pursue your passions, and prioritize your well-being. Together, let's create a life that radiates with energy and purpose. Until next time, live vibrantly. See you in our next episode.